Mau mulai? Aku go live ya?
Iya.
Ini soalnya udah masuk.
Iya, udah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Rektor, izin kami mulai ya Pak?
Iya, monggo.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first International Online Seminar 2023 held by Faculty of Medicine, IPB University, with the theme Challenges of the Indonesian Agromaritime to Strengthen One Health Collaboration. My name is Yani Quinta, and I will serve as the Master of Ceremony today. This seminar aims to bridge a dialogue between international scholars and the academic community by discussing current research and future perspectives about agromaritime society and One Health concept. This event supported by Medica Gamaga Hospital, Bakti Medical Hospital, Rodia, and PT Novel. First of all, let us praise the Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because of His blessing, we can attend this event today. Secondly, the Faculty of Medicine, IPB University, is truly honored to present you with this seminar. It is a privilege to introduce and welcome Rector of IPB University, Professor Dr. Arif Satria, SP MSI, the Dean of Faculty of Medicine, Professor Dr. Hewan Srihadi Agung Priyono, PhD, Pamfet Konsultan, Vice Dean of Academic Affairs and Personnel, Dr. Irma Herawati, MS, Vice Dean of Resources, Cooperation, Finance and Development, Dr. Heti Mulyati, STP, MT, Head of the Department of Medical Education, Dr. Mira Dewi, MSc, and all members of the Faculty of Medicine, IPB University. We would also welcome our honorable keynote speakers, Professor Shailendra Prasad, Professor Chandra, Dr. Diki, and all the invited guests, participants, and the Committee of International Online Seminar 2023. For a brief moment, let me read out our agenda this morning. First, opening. Second, singing the national anthem of Indonesia and hymnal IPB University. Third, welcoming speeches. Fourth, prayer. Fifth, material session. And the last is closing. Dear attendees, before we begin, please be informed that today's seminar is also broadcasted in YouTube FKIPB. And we will give door prizes for participants who still join until the end of the seminar. Okay, the first agenda is the opening. I will read our rules for this seminar. Okay, number one, your name used in the Zoom meeting must display a name that matches to account name when registering for the seminar. Second, participant must fill out presence and feedback link, which will send in a chat box. Third, all participants can stay until the end of the seminar because there is some door prizes. Fourth, you can ask questions by writing down in the chat box in English or Bahasa Indonesia. Question will be answered in the discussion session. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite you to rise and sing the Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Please rise. seated. Next, we will listen to the hymn of IPB University. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to have the welcoming speech delivered by the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine IPB University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Hewan Srihadi Agung Priyono, PhD, Private Consultant, Diploma ACCM.
Honorable Rector IPB University, Honorable guest speakers, Professor Saleh Prasad of Minnesota, Professor Chandra Yoga Aditama from Yarsi University, and Dr. Diki Budiman from Griffith University. Also to our today moderator, Dr. Ligaya Tumbelaka of IPB University. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. As we know that the world is evolving rapidly, and so too are the challenges we face in the realm of healthcare. As we confront the complexity of our modern society, it has become evident that we must adopt a comprehensive approach to medicine that embraces the interconnectedness of our health, the environment, and the agricultural and maritime sectors. Today will mark a significant milestone as we gather here to hear that IPB University will open a new medical school, the Faculty of Medicine, one that is dedicated to a unique and innovative focus, the Agromaritime medicine. The concept of agromaritime medicine recognizes the vital role played by this sector in our lives. Agriculture and maritime industries are not only essential for sustenance and growing of the economy, but they also have a profound impact on public health and well-being. By establishing a medical school dedicated to this field, we are taking a proactive step forward addressing the unique health challenges that arise from this sector. Our new medical school will be a hub of excellence, bringing together experts from various disciplines, medicine, agriculture, marine sciences, environmental studies, and more. Through collaborative efforts, One Health, we will foster a rich environment of learning, research, and innovation. The curriculum of our medical school will be designed to equip our students with a deep understanding of the interplay between the agriculture, maritime activities, and human health. They will study the impact of agricultural practices on nutrition, food safety, the prevalence of chronic disease, zoonosis. They will explore the health risk and occupational hazard faced by those working in the agromaritime. They will learn to address the unique health needs of rural communities and coastal population. We hope our graduates will become healthcare professionals with a comprehensive understanding of the agromaritime context and the skill to make a real difference in these areas. In addition to education and research, our medical school will serve also as a center for knowledge exchange and collaboration. We will organize conference, seminars, such as the one we have today, bring together experts, policymakers, and stakeholders to share insight, discuss emerging trends, and develop strategies for a healthier and more sustainable future. Thank you again to Professor Prasad, Professor Chandra Yoga, and Dr. Diki Budiman to share their thoughts and experiences in this particular field. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to inform all of you through this seminar that the establishment of our new medical school focus on agromaritime medicine represent a paradigm shift of healthcare education. I would like to express my gratitude to the Rector of IPB University, all the sponsors, individual and organization, the committee members, and also to all the participants of this today's seminar that have contributed to the realization of our first webinar, our first seminar of our new medical school. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the Almighty God, bless us always. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Hadi. We will continue with the next speech by the Rector of IPB University, as well as for him to officially open the seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Arif Satria, SP, MSc.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable keynote speakers and moderator, Honorable Acting Dean of Faculty of Medicine, IPB University, honorable invited guests, participants, and organizing
Nggak usah, Bapak lagi seminar.
of the international seminar. A very good morning to you all. First and foremost, on behalf of IPB University, allow me to this opportunity to welcome all of you to the international seminar with the theme Challenges of the Indonesian Agromaritime to Strengthen One Health Collaboration. It is held by Faculty of Medicine, IPB University. As we know that One Health is a new approach which recognizes that the health of people is closely connected to the health of animals and our shared environment. One Health is actually not new, but it has become more important in recent years. This is because many factors have changed interaction between people, animals, plant, and our environment. Ladies and gentlemen, given the important issues of One Health, it is hoped that the seminar with the proposed theme can increase public knowledge and awareness of One Health and agromaritime public health. In addition, this webinar also means to introduce the Faculty of Medicine, IPB University, which emphasize on One Health-based agromaritime medicine. I appreciate in organizing this international seminar, and hopefully this event will significantly give more contribution to the study program as well as to the scientific community engaged in medicine. Collaboration. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
With Pak Rektor and Pak Dekan. Ya, bisa dihitung dalam hitungan batik, boleh. 3, 2. Thank you, Prof. Thanks again, Pak Rektor.
Thank you, Pak Rektor. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we will have a prayer that will be led by Dr. Lukmanul Hakim, Spesialis THTKL. To Dr. Hakim, the screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Sebelum memulai acara hari ini, marilah kita berdoa pada Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala agar kiranya kita diberi limpahan karunia dan rahmatnya, diberikan kelancaran dan kesuksesan dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan ini. Bagi yang beragama Islam, silahkan mengikuti saya, dan non-Muslim silahkan menyesuaikan. Astagfirullahaladzim, astagfirullahaladzim, astagfirullahaladzim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Allahumma sholli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad. Ya Allah yang Maha Pengasih lagi Maha Penyayang, puji dan syukur kami panjatkan kehadirat-Mu karena atas limpahan rahmat-Mu pada pagi ini kami dapat berkumpul dalam kegiatan seminar internasional IPB University. Semoga kegiatan yang kami laksanakan selalu berada dalam lindungan dan ridho-Mu. Ya Allah yang Maha Mengetahui lagi Maha Bijaksana, karuniakanlah kepada kami ilmu yang bermanfaat dan berikanlah kami kemudahan dan kepemahaman selama mengikuti kegiatan ini. Ya Allah, janganlah Engkau palingkan hati kami setelah Engkau beri petunjuk. Rahmatilah kami, ampunilah kami, sehatkanlah keluarga kami, dan mudahkan segala urusan kami. Ya Allah yang Maha Perkasa, berikanlah kami kekuatan, kesabaran, dan keikhlasan dalam mengikuti kegiatan ini, serta bimbinglah kami ke jalan yang Kau ridhoi. Ya Allah, kayakanlah kami dengan ilmu, hiasilah diri kami dengan sifat lemah lembut, muliakanlah kami dengan ketakwaan, dan cantikkanlah kami dengan kesehatan. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah, wa fil akhirati hasanah, wa qina azabannar. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Amin. Thank you, Dr. Hakim. Before we proceed to the main session, I would like to invite all participants and speakers to take a group photo. Okay. Please. Okay. Oh, please turn on your camera. I will count in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the main agenda of today, which is the presentation of the keynote speakers of today's seminar. I will hand the session to our moderator. Please allow me to read curriculum vitae from our moderator. Dr. Hewan Ligaya Ita Tumbeleka, Special SPMP MSc, got bachelor degree from Veterinary Medicine IPB University in 1983, then continue her Master of Science from Oregon State University in 1990. Then she got specialist medical primate from Bowman Gray School of Medicine, North Carolina, US in 1992. Then she got Doctor Science Veterinaire from IPB University in 1997. Now she is lecturer of SKHB IPB University and also expert staff of Veterinary Health, Ministry of Agriculture. Over to you, Dr. Ligaya.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Yeni. Good morning, everybody, and then good night, afternoon, maybe for Dr. Sailendra. But yeah, I will become the moderator for these three presentations. For the first presentation, we will listen to the speech from Dr. Sailendra. May I tell you all about his curriculum vitae, please? Okay, everybody can read the curriculum vitae. It is pretty long, but I only will tell some of the emphasize for his great work from Dr. Sailendra, or usually we call Dr. Shaili. So, hello, Dr. Shaili. I will let me read some of your CV. So, Dr. Shaili is a medical doctor and then vice president from University of Minnesota, chaired also in University Minnesota, and so many work like professor, vice chair, and also adjunct professor. He has been doing a lot of great work, if we can read it, in addition to his professor's work, such as co-director of the Rotherberger Leadership Academy, and also co-lead of the CDC and the NIH, and also founding members, yeah, for advocacy for global health partnership. So he's been working with a great work, especially for so many education across discipline. So maybe no further ado, I will ask Professor Sailendra to present your presentation about how to promote One Health approach in medical education. The time is yours, Prof.
Thank you, Dr. Ligaya. I really appreciate that warm welcome. My particular thanks to all faculty, all members of IPB University for inviting me. Thank you, Prof. Arif Satria, Prof. Sri Hadi. I've gotten to know many of your faculty members, and it's been a developing friendship. I particularly enjoyed my conversations with Dr. Meera Devi and Dr. Vidya Ekanugraha. I also see a couple of other members that I know from Indonesia in the audience, Dr. Agus Suvandano and Adi Veeravan from Denpasar. So hello to everyone. I feel like I'm amongst friends here. So thank you for this invitation. I feel particularly privileged to be part of this conversation. I do have a presentation, and I'm going to share it right now. And then hopefully we'll have a robust discussion following. The presentation is meant to be a starter for all the conversations we're going to have. So to begin with, I want to congratulate IPB University for undertaking this rather important journey in creating a One Health curriculum in medical education. I remember my conversation with Prof. Sri Hadi and others about this, and I felt a little nervous myself. And like, you guys are just starting and you're jumping into a One Health curriculum. This is fantastic. It's not easy. There are some particular challenges that I see coming your way, but I'm also excited because I think it's a fantastic opportunity for you folks to claim a territory in medical education that's very much needed. My background, I'm a primary care physician, I'm a professor. I've worked in various parts of the world, particularly in underserved areas and rural areas. So I have a particular interest in education that looks into communities and addressing needs of communities. And that's where I feel your approach, One Health approach towards medical education, is going to be really fantastic. Just as an aside, my university is pretty old. And like all old people, sometimes we are very hard to change. I say this because if I go to my medical school here, we have 6 health sciences schools in one campus here at the University of Minnesota. If I go to the medical school and just randomly talk to a faculty about One Health, they look at me strange. What do you mean by One Health? And part of it is a story we've had in health sciences. We are really good at our own corners. We're not good at communicating across disciplines. So this is going to be an ongoing narrative for you folks, right? So let's start with what is the One Health approach. I probably don't have to spend a whole lot of time here, but imagine a Venn diagram, right? Which incorporates various aspects, human animal, and environmental aspects together. The point here is still, particularly from One Health approach, medical education, is still to address human health, but in the context of understanding the interplay between human health, animal health, and environments. So if this is the case, the big question that follows quite often is, why is this important? Why do we need this? A quick answer would be that our current model is not good. And I'm telling you, it's not good, or not good enough. If you look at what we've all experienced over the past few years of the COVID pandemic, it was the biggest stress test that you can imagine for global health. And we failed the stress test. We didn't do a good job. You know this. I don't have to give in great numbers as to what happened in communities. While our attention was focused towards COVID, we forgot other things that are important to human beings, like other immunizations, other chronic diseases, diabetes, cancer prevention, and things like that. We can't afford to keep doing it. So I'm here to say that our current health system, which then follows our current medical education, is not doing a great job. So if that's the case, what we really need is an ability to prepare future generations to complex issues, the interplay between human, animal, and the environment. I do feel that a One Health approach is very important for environmental sustainability because we'll have a newfound respect for the environment. We'll recognize new and emerging infectious disease. And the fourth point here, I'm going to mention context. And the premise of context is important. I'll come back to that. We are really good at going very specific in our approach to diseases. Even my university here, we are really good to go at the micro level, at the individual micro level. But we are not good at expanding that out into communities, which is a very important aspect of understanding how the practice of medicine should happen. And if that is the case, our approach should be much more comprehensive. So here, I'm going to digress a little bit. And I borrowed this from one of my colleagues, Chas Salmon, who's worked extensively on Lake Victoria in Kenya for many years now. And he starts with a question, what is an organism? We're all, students of science. We understand the biological premise. And in the biological premise, we look at an individual entity as an organism. But here is a question. Can we look at a community as an organism? Can we look at the interplay between the different interactions that occur at the community level in itself being an organism? And that in itself is something we need to keep in mind. When I'm talking about global health, I talk about how about we look at the whole world as an organism and the interconnectedness between the environment, the oceans, the air, the people, the animals are all very important. Because within an organism, if you have one part of the organism that is suffering, another part suffers too, right? And in the last, since World War II particularly, we have gotten into an aspect of biomedical reductionism, and we have gotten very specifically targeting individual diseases, individual organ systems. I'm here to say that we need to start looking at communities as organisms, the world as an organism. By that token, I am part of your existence. You are part of my existence. And that's an integral feature we need to keep in mind. So let's take this, a live example of a project we've been working on for many years. This is along the shores of Lake Victoria. Some of you might have read this. The British colonial administration in the late 60s illegally introduced a particular fish for growing fisheries in the Great Lakes region of Africa. And this huge fish that you see this man carrying is called the Nile perch. It grows to humongous sizes. And from a fisheries viewpoint, it was very good because a lot of the Nile perch was caught and exported, etc., etc., etc. But there are two things that happen. One, the Nile perch is an apex predator, so it destroyed all local fishes. And because of the fisheries aspect of it, you had commercial fishermen from that part of Africa all end up in Lake Victoria. That led to an interaction between the locals and the people coming in, and a rapid spread of this particular disease, which you all know as HIV. Some of the most highest prevalence of HIV is still seen on the shores of Lake Victoria. We work on an island called Mufangana Island in on Lake Victoria. The prevalence is nearly 30% of the population being HIV positive, 30%. So keep in mind here, we look at HIV as an infectious disease, right? Yes, it's an infectious disease, but it's not just an infectious disease. It's a social disease. In this particular context, it's the intense interplay between the fisheries industry, between the people, between the economy. And all of this needs to be considered while we're addressing the disease. Because what's happened is the industry has moved so much towards fisheries that other industries have been destroyed, livelihoods have been destroyed. So today, if you were to look at that particular area of Lake Victoria, we need to look at the HIV/AIDS related illness weakening rural economies. Now, that leads to intense problems, networks. Unfortunately, women are burdened with transactional sex to feed their families, and that increases HIV risk, and that increases other diseases, and this is an ongoing cycle. The biomedical model, as we are teaching in the medical schools today, we can approach it from a very simple, HIV, enroll them, start giving them medicine, boom. Unfortunately, that's not enough. We need to get the economy growing again. We need to get people engaged in the communities again. The agricultural base that the community has been having has been destroyed, and that needs to come back again. That is the One Health approach. That is the context-based, comprehensive approach that we need. Yes, we still look at HIV as an infectious disease. I'm not in any way saying it's not an infectious disease, but it's not enough to look at it as an infectious disease alone. We need to understand the interplay between things. This is what we need to be looking at. I'm going to take a brief segue here to look at medical education as we have. This is a model that I like the most. It's called the Dreyfus model. In the Dreyfus model, we look at folks who get into medicine and are medical students, and they are in this stage of being a novice, learners, early learners. I would call them hunter-gatherers of information. And then in the medical education language, they go into postgraduate training, which is between these green lines. And in postgraduate training, they're doing agriculture on themselves. They need to plan the agenda. They need to plan the training. They need to know what's going on in the future. And this goes through steps. The step of being competent enough to handle patients, to start seeing patients, proficient enough to understand what's going on, and an expert or near peer when they're about to graduate from a postgraduate training. In this framework, you have to understand that they're not done. They continue to learn, even after postgraduate training. And I think you folks know this, right? In your own fields, if you are in the field of medicine, or if you're a veterinarian, or if you're in any of the health sciences, you know that your training is not done when you're done with university. The university is just preparing you to be a lifelong learner. And to achieve mastery, where you put more context together, the interplay between factors of new diseases, new understandings, it'll take you years, thousands and thousands of hours. So if we are looking at this framework of medical education, we need to understand that here in this stage, you need maximum supervision. In this stage, you need minimum supervision. And then you need an adult learner that is prepared for the rest of their life to learn and continue to learn. When we call them residents here in the US, postgraduate students, when they're about to graduate, in 2 weeks, we're going to have a graduation ceremony here. I usually greet them by saying, congratulations, you got much more to learn. Welcome to the lifelong learner group now. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is this has to be understood in the context of One Health. Because what has happened in traditional medical education is that in the pre-medical training and the medical student training, where I put us here as a novice, to the postgraduate training, people's training gets narrower and narrower and narrower. Whereas in One Health, we're actually asking them to have broader and broader and broader approaches. So we are now asking for a completely different paradigm of approach towards their education. So you understand why when Prof. Srihadi and the group met with me a few months ago, I was nervous. I'm like, this is exciting, but I'm also nervous because this is a new paradigm that you're going to be approaching. Okay, current medical education. Here are some of the challenges. There's not enough interprofessional education. And part of the reason is medical education is quite complicated. There's a lot of material that one is expected to learn. So we got very siloed in our own corners, in our own areas. We've been emphasizing technical skills a lot. We jokingly say that we are training folks to learn more and more about less and less. We jokingly talk about the right kidney specialist versus a left kidney specialist. No, there is no such thing as a right kidney specialist. But it's gotten to a highly specialized, super specialized approach towards medicine that we've gotten really good. I'm not in any way saying it is wrong. Please understand, my wife is a specialist. She'll get mad at me if I say this otherwise. It's important to keep in mind that our education focus has gotten very narrow, as in the particular organ that we're looking at. And this is something to keep in mind. The other part that is important in our medical education is as we've gotten too technical in our education, we have forgotten how to communicate. Communicate with people out in the community. We get more and more technical in our language, right? We forget how to communicate with our peers. Because we start using acronyms that are very unique to our own field. A friend of mine just did an exercise in interprofessional education a few years ago. She got everybody to write, she gave out a few acronyms and asked people to write down what it meant for them. Each one had a completely different answer. But we've gotten very good at our own field because we've gotten so technically adept at our own field that we've forgotten about communicating. And if we cannot communicate with our colleagues in the health sciences, just imagine what it is to communicate with communities. This is an essential problem that we have in medical education. Some people call it soft skills. I call them essential skills. You might have heard of this. There is a lack of trust in health sciences, in sciences in general, around the world. Around the world, we are at a low point of community members. It's manifested itself ugly here in the US sometimes, with people denying vaccines and other things. And I think we are partly to blame too, because we've gotten too technical in our approaches to the sciences that we've forgotten that we need to understand science communication is an integral part that we do. And today, I'm here to say that medical education, and I'm not an expert in the Indonesian medical education, but I've good understanding of it. I've interacted with a few people within Indonesia. It's very similar in many ways in the highly technical skills that we give. Our current medical education does not give enough importance to the social determinants of health, and our siloed mentality perpetuates our lifelong learning too. So here I am presenting all the doom and gloom, right? So what does a One Health approach in medical education in Indonesia entail? Part of it, I'm telling you, is the excitement. I'm really excited that there is this, the conversation that is going on. And while there is an important reason for us to continue with the technical education that we talked about, I'm hoping we go a little more adaptive in our approach. So towards that, I would propose that I tend to look at creating workforce along three different buckets, if you will. I'm going to start with the middle one, which is a factory, which are academic units or universities, in this case, IPB Bogor, that produces graduates, medical graduates, doctors, right? It's one important consideration, the factory. Now, the products of that factory, which are these doctors, once they graduate, needs to go to a market, right? And the third thing that binds this factory and the market is a policy level thing that occurs at the national, regional, and sometimes supranational, global scale. And I'm approaching this particular aspect of developing One Health education here in IPB Bogor with this framework, because if you're going to create a factory, which you're planning on doing a new medical school, with emphasis on agromaritime One Health approaches, they need to have a market to go to. Because if you have your graduates coming out of the medical school and they don't get jobs, you guys are going to be in trouble. I'm not doubting that they will not have jobs. I'm not doubting that at all. But there is a very important need to be pushed across all of Indonesia, that the approach towards community-based, One Health focused medical care is absolutely necessary. That message should go hand in hand in building the new medical school. This is where policy comes in. If the policy at the regional level, in West Java, Bogor is in West Java, isn't it? Or in all of Java or the whole country, if the policy is set that there is an emphasis on medical graduates having a One Health background, then your products, the folks you graduate out of your medical school, will have that much more importance given to their education. So as you're building the factory, as you're building a medical school, it's important to consider the market where they're going to go and the policy that will drive this. So now let's go to the factory. I got this photo from the internet, so forgive me. I do believe this is IPB Bogor. It looks like an absolutely beautiful building. I haven't visited the place yet, but it looks like a fantastic place. So what about the factory? I mentioned to you in the early part of my talk that medical education as it is right now is not doing a great job. It's doing okay. It's doing okay in its own way, right? Technical skills. We have developed some fabulous approaches to medicine. The fact that we were able to do an mRNA vaccine so quickly is a testament to what we have done. So I'm not in any way saying what we have done is bad. I'm saying that we need to be doing more when it comes to communities, right? So if that is the case, we need faculty who understand that premise. So one of the biggest challenges Prof. Srihadi and the rest of the gang here is going to have is to develop a faculty who understand the philosophy of One Health while they're teaching their individual topics. Where do their individual topics fit in the grand scheme of One Health approaches? What is the relevance one has while you're teaching parasitology, while you're teaching chronic diseases like diabetes? What relevance does that have in One Health? In some cases, infectious disease is relatively easier to give the picture of One Health, right? Tomorrow, if you have a topic on zoonotic diseases, it's very easy to understand the One Health reasons for it. But what about diabetes? How do you bring in One Health approaches for diabetes? And this is where understanding community-engaged work, community-engaged training, context-based approaches towards communities is very critical. So remember, we talked about the community being a live organism where every aspect of the community is interlinked. So we would need faculty who understand the philosophy behind it, understand the premise behind One Health. Otherwise, we are going to teach our students the same old technical ways. The second point, we want to create adaptive learners. What I mean by that is, remember how I mentioned that your learning is not done when you graduate from university. Your learning is just beginning because you're going to learn more things. Lifelong learner, right? We also have to bring in people's consciousness to understand that they might be faced with newer challenges. Let me give you two examples. One was a report that came a few years ago here in the US that showed that a sedentary lifestyle was probably just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than cigarettes for heart attacks. So immediately you say, wait, what? I'm not in any way saying they should be smoking. They need to quit smoking. They need to stop smoking, right? But the sedentary lifestyle being equated in some ways to be just as bad as smoking brings up the point that in your approach towards care for chronic diseases, for heart disease, shouldn't you be talking more about exercise? Can you prescribe exercise? Now, how would that look? Another example, one of the highest risks that we have here in the US for chronic diseases worsening is social isolation. Some of you have visited the US. The US can be extremely isolating. It's a very individualistic country. So the interplay between people can be very low. And COVID was quite devastating for a lot of people because the social isolation got worse. And along with social isolation, we had worsening depression, worsening anxiety, worsening diabetes, worsening heart disease, worsening alcoholism. So while we are looking at adaptive learners, can we now train people to understand that there might be new paradigms you have to consider? So your approach towards diabetes management might be simply to connect people together. I mentioned Mufangana Island and Lake Victoria. My colleague Chaz Salmon did a project there of activating social networks, pre-existing social networks, activating them, and found that it showed increased compliance with HIV medications. And for chronic disease care, an activated patient is the best predictor of success. So what we want our learners to do is to not understand isolation alone, not understand sedentary lifestyle alone, not understand smoking is bad alone. We want them to understand that there'll be newer paradigms that they might have to understand. Newer diseases, newer approaches. We want them to be critical thinkers and adaptive learners. This in itself is going to be a huge challenge in the One Health approach. The third point is obvious, understanding the role across species and also planetary health, understanding the context in which things are. I'm going to go back to the point about the community as an organism, the interplay between the interactions between the different people, animals, constituents of a community is a very important part to understand and address while you're addressing the health of people. And the last point is quite obvious too, right? So the challenge your medical school is going to have is to create a faculty that understands these principles and approaches training from an adult learner towards critical thinking. I have all these references. Feel free to, I'll email this presentation over to Dr. Vidya, and he'll hopefully share it with all of you too. But I'm going to stop my presentation because I can keep talking. I prefer not to, and open this up for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shaili. So now question time. Okay, so everybody, we have heard about the presentation. It's very good. Open our horizon about what is One Health, especially for the medical school, the new medical school in IPB. Hope that your insight can also develop us a good medical school here in IPB University. Now, actually, there are already questions for you. Okay, there are two questions actually already in the. Okay, these are the questions. The first one from Dr. Christie. So you can read it. What are the minimum requirements to build a medical faculty with a One Health approach, Dr. Saili? What is your answer for that?
Dr. Christie, thank you. That's an interesting question. I think there are two factors to consider here. One is, as you're building the medical school, it's important to look at what are the requirements from the Indonesian government for what would constitute as graduation from medical school, right? So that has to be absolutely the starting point, because no point in you creating a curriculum that won't satisfy the Board of Medical Education in Indonesia. The second part is the content delivery. So I would say that once the first part is addressed, as in the requirements from the Indonesian board is addressed, the content delivery is going to be on the philosophy of One Health, and then looking at educational approaches to delivering the content. Like, how do you create critical thinkers? How do you create adaptive learners? What is adaptive learning compared to technical learning, and why both are important, adaptive learning and technical learning? Why are they both relevant? We also talked about the importance of teaching skills around communications, about working in teams, about approaching disciplines that they may not be familiar with. How does a physician interact with an agrarian? How does a physician interact with a veterinarian? Is there an opportunity for them to both look at problem-solving issues that come up in communities? Those are things that need to be taken care of. So, Dr. Christie, your question is an absolutely important one. I don't have a very clear answer because I think you need to satisfy both aspects.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saili. So Dr. Christie listened already. So the second one from Dr. Vidya, based on your experiences in Mangano. Okay, how long does it take for your approach to make an impact on the society?
Dr. Vidya, thank you for that question. It was my colleague, Chas Salman, who spent years in Mafangana. He's been in Mafangana for more than 10 years. I have worked in other communities, but I'll tell you, community engaged work takes time. I get a little worried when people talk about doing a community engaged project for 2 weeks. I'm like, you hardly understand the community by that time. So I think it is important to keep in mind that while you are entering into a community, you need to be respectful. I teach a course on community engaged ethics, actually, as part of global health ethics. But the premise here is to understand that you are approaching communities with a lot of respect and also trying to lean on the community to understand where their knowledge is, what is the wisdom that they hold in their own communities. In terms of impact, you can see impact pretty quickly. Understanding where community will start trusting you, you can see impact in a few months' time. Fortunately or unfortunately, medical care is absolutely necessary in communities. There is a philosopher, Howard Brody, who said that no society can exist without a healer. Societies can exist without some other disciplines, but a healer is absolutely necessary in society. I'm going to extend that by saying, because of that, physicians will have a great privilege when they enter into communities. And so the impact that you'll have will be quite quick that way. Thank you for your question, Dr. Vidya.
Yeah, great. So, there's another one, Dr. Sarli, from Dr. Kartika. One Health really needs multi-sectoral program and commitment. Could you share us your experiences in convincing government of any institution about the importance of One Health? Thank you.
Dr. Karthik, I think I've been found out. Like I mentioned, the approach towards One Health is not easy in the US. We do have a fair amount of interprofessional education, but the interprofessional education models we have does not typically constitute a One Health approach. It's fascinating because our university has a long history of One Health training. You folks are familiar with the OHUNs, COHUN, INDOHUN, etc., etc. And our university was involved in setting them up and partnering with various people within Indonesia in that. I feel that various governments in Southeast Asia are more ready for One Health than the US. I've seen it happen in Indonesia. I've seen it happen in Thailand, probably less so in Malaysia. I've seen it happen in Vietnam. So there are individual countries that are probably more ready. I would actually say that Indonesia is probably more ready than many other countries that I know. But that's a very critical question, Dr. Karthika, because as I mentioned, the three parts that we talked about, the factory, the market, and the policy, the policy is the government, is the institutional aspects that we're talking about. So convincing them is going to be a very critical part of that. Here in the US, we've been able to convince our governments for primary care-based approaches, which took a long time. It's still not perfect, but it's still better than what we had many years ago. So I think it is still possible. Indonesia has some very particular advantages. One advantage is that there are so many islands, so much of water in between. So approaching the Agromaritime conversation, if not Indonesia, where else, right? Thank you for your question there.
Oh, yeah, great. Well, Doctor, I still will invite some of the audience here to question you. So we wait for a moment, please, audience. If there's some question, maybe one or two you want to raise hand, then ask Dr. Shirley directly. I think that they can ask whatever related to One Health, yeah, doctor.
Absolutely.
Please, come on. We have a very, very what distinguished speaker now. You can question him. No? From participant, raise hand. We wait for that. Nggak ada ya? They are say waiting maybe because but the thing is Dr. Saili, I heard about communication. You said a lot of important thing about communication. Can you elaborate more about that to us? Yeah, especially for me in the veterinary medicine, we cannot talk to our patient, but we need to talk to our client. So I think communication is really important for this. Can you elaborate that more, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so there are two things to keep in mind. One is quite often when we get very comfortable in our own fields, our own areas, we understand what we're doing because we've been in the field for a long time, right? So translating what we're doing in plain language so that the person across you understands it is an absolutely important question.
Okay.
There is a whole new appreciation of regarding this, particularly with the COVID pandemic. It sort of very clearly demonstrated that large institutions, including universities, need to do a better job of communicating with the communities. There is this term called science diplomacy, using science as a way to connect with various entities. So communication skills should involve those, not just converting into plain language, but trying to understand what the other person's concerns and fears are. We say that to be a good speaker, you need to be a good listener, because the premise of communication in itself means that there is this active interaction that occurs between two people. So how well are we teaching our students now to become good listeners? How well are we looking at getting our students to understand local wisdom? So for example, let's say one of your graduates decides to go and work on a small fishing village in Indonesia. And will that person be ready to understand all the history of that particular village? And that, I think, is a very critical question. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sailia. Communication is really important. I agree with that. Okay, doctor, apparently there's another question here for you from Dr. Yeni. How do you deal with the interspecialist segregation that happened a lot in medical world? Because One Health needs a unity from many professions.
Dr. Yeni, it's a wonderful question. Around the world, I've seen this, particularly during COVID. To give you an example, in India, there were people who were giving opinions of what the approach to COVID should be. And there would be a cardiologist with no background in infectious diseases or epidemiology or public health. And then people would follow their direction even when it was bad. So what has happened in a highly technical education-based approach towards medicine in the biomedical reductionism, and you can see this around the 1950s onwards, getting to a point where specialization and super specialization has led to a hierarchy. And this hierarchy sometimes manifests itself in salaries, for example, or prestige. You know this. You've heard about your community folks being valued because they're a cardiologist or a neurosurgeon. I'm not in any way saying they're not doing important work. But I do feel that when you do that, you're creating hierarchy and this interspecialist segregation. Dr. Yanni, I love that term. I'm going to use that term in other areas. And it's created hierarchy between people that suddenly emphasis is not given to, for example, primary care. I'm a primary care doc by training. I would want to say that we would want to create the expectation that One Health approaches are critical and important, and that by no means inferior to being a specialist. So a lot of that is going to be the market part of it, Dr. Yeni, that I mentioned, of how the future products of your school are perceived in communities. The other part that is critical is the value that public policy, in this case, governmental policy, creates in its policy framework is going to be very critical in valuing our One Health physicians too. So thank you for that question.
Okay. So welcome, Prof. Agus Wandono. I think he will speak directly to you. Just please open the...
Hi, dear Agus.
Agus, please, if you want to say something to Dr. Charlie directly. Nggak bisa masuk ya, Ben? Okay, I think he already put a message from, where's the message here? Show it again, please. So everybody can see it. Pak Agus bisa tampil?
Pak Agusnya, Mbak.
Oh. Okay. Slide sebelumnya, Dr. Rose. Sorry. So that's what Dr. Agus, Professor Agus actually want to tell you, but I think he left already.
Yeah, he
Hello.
indicated.
Hello, Sherry.
Oh,
Hi,
no,
Agus.
no.
How are
He's
you?
still on.
Morning. How are you? It's really
Good,
nice
good.
to hear from you about your presentation.
Okay, that's Prof. Agus.
I really do hope that for the next visit to Indonesia, you can also visit the University of IPB and discuss with them for how to improve the One Health approach in the curriculum of the School of Medicine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Agus is a dear friend, and it's always a thrill to hear good words from him. I do feel that in many ways you have expertise with Indahun and folks like Dr. Agus that you can lean on. So, but Agus, as always, it's so wonderful to see you. Thank you. Appreciate
Sure.
it.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank
Prof.
you.
Agus. Okay, there are two more questions. Maybe that's the last question for you. Dr. Charlie, can let me show. Okay. Okay, that's from Dr. Mira.
Yes. So, Dr. Mira's question is a really wonderful one. In medical education, do you think we need to start including other disciplines in curriculum besides animal health and environment that are related to health, such as economics and anthropology, or is it too early? I would actually say it's not early. This is probably one of the essential challenges you're going to have in the curriculum approach as to what to include and what not to include. I'll give you a quick example. Many of us who have gone through medical schooling, including in Indonesia, had to learn the Krebs cycle. And we learned the Krebs cycle like crazy. We have never really practically utilized any aspect of the Krebs cycle since graduation. We have some of our current curriculum that is old. Don't get me wrong, Krebs cycle is a very important point in science. I'm not in any way declining that. We probably need to teach people how to pull up the Krebs cycle on the internet, and that's about it. We don't need to ask them to memorize every aspect of the Krebs cycle. I'd rather my students learn a little more about sociology and anthropology and economics not to be an expert in it, but to understand the framework of approach. So, Dr. Meera, I think the challenge is going to be, as you're looking at sociology, economics, anthropology, and other fields, how much can you include in making that part of somebody's learning? Just as an aside, I've found out that a lot of my medical students who have done non-science-based training in the US, they do a bachelor's degree and then go to medical school, but who do the liberal arts tend to be really fantastic in their approaches. Folks who do psychology, English, languages, women's study, African American study, their approaches towards medicine is a little different. And I found that to be really refreshing. So I think there is something there we need to keep in mind as we look at One Health approaches too. So.
Okay, thank you. There's another from Adi Sanjaya, Doctor. Could you tell?
Yeah, Dr. Sanjay's question is about one or two examples of novel policy by government that in line with One Health approach, and as a result of medical professionals' advocacy. So what has been fascinating are these, that a lot of this has been around developing large-scale programming for One Health, but not in the education aspect. So I feel that this is another reason why I'm really excited and what IPB Bogor is starting here. Because I think you're actually talking about creating a new model, new paradigm of teaching for medical professionals. So I think this is going to be very interesting as you go forward. Yeah. So Dr. Ligaya has another question. Oh, you put it from Dr. Gusti. Okay. Current condition in Indonesia nowadays.
Yeah. Go ahead, Doc.
Current condition in Indonesia nowadays was RUU/medical laws. One of the topic was to strengthen doctors' education and spreading doctors in Indonesia. So Ministry of Health will take over doctors' education from the collegium. In your humble opinion, which is better, if it's held in the ministry or the collegium? Dr. Gusti, that's a good question. I personally like that to be separate from the ministry. I think the collegium will have a better option of looking at curriculum and requirements for graduation and things like that rather than at the ministry. But that's my opinion. I'm not an expert in Indonesia's ministerial structures, but I would personally prefer that if the education is directed from the collegium, like it's an independent body. I hope that answers your questions, Dr. Gusti.
I think you've answered that, but this is the last question actually that given for you. Thank you so much, Dr. Saili, for all your answer for those questions. So we learned a lot about that as well. Now, before finish your presentation, we would like to have another photo taken with all the participants, if you don't mind.
Feels like I'm quite popular when that happens.
Yeah. A lot of picture for this, for documentation, Doc.
I need to probably get an agent.
In 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you, Bro Sally. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. It's been wonderful chatting with you. I hope my goal had been to provoke some discussion on this. What you folks are embarking on is a bold, really bold, new approach. So, like I mentioned, I'm both excited and nervous for you. As I mentioned earlier, that I'm developing some really good friends here in IPB Bogor, and hopefully these friendships will continue. Thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, again, thank you so much for your time and then your knowledge, Dr. Shaili. I think that we still will communicate a lot with you after this. But for this presentation, thank you so much. So, audience, after this, we will listen to two others' presentation. But before that, let's hear about something. Dr. Yeni, go ahead.
Thank you, Bu Gaya.
Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga terletak di Kota Bogor. Pada 11 Agustus 2011 menjadi momen peletakan batu pertama dan 10 November 2012 menjadi awal operasional dan hari ulang tahun Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga. Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga memiliki visi mewujudkan rumah sakit yang bermutu dan mengutamakan budaya keselamatan, dan juga misi sebagai berikut. Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga adalah fasilitas kesehatan dengan status tipe C. Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga dilengkapi fasilitas rawat inap, VVIP, VIP, kelas 1, 2, dan 3. Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga dilengkapi 23 klinik spesialis. Di antaranya instalasi gawat darurat. IGD Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga sudah dilengkapi dengan fasilitas yang lengkap dan nyaman. Dan juga tersedia dokter spesialis emergensi. Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga didukung dengan fasilitas diagnostik yang mutakhir. Tersedia pelayanan medis khusus seperti perinatologi, ruang operasi, ICU, HCU, dan ruang bersalin. Rumah Sakit Medika Dramaga menerima pasien umum, BPJS, dan asuransi.
Okay, so there's about the hospital, Medika Dramaga. Well, now we are going to hear the next two presentation. So I will read the CV from the presenter. The second one will be Dr. Diki Budiman, MSc PhD. So he graduated from Faculty Medicine Unpad Bandung and Master in Epidemiology of Environment in Health at Griffith University, Australia, and also for his PhD. His career starting from Cisaruni Community Health Center in Tasikmalaya, West Java, and then going out from Tasikmalaya for 24 years of work experiences in various national and global institutions, like you can see in the slide. And also be involved in various global and national health issues, including SARS, HIV/AIDS, swine flu, etc., etc. That will be the second presenter. And after Dr. Dickey, we will also listen a presentation from Professor Dr. Chandra Yoga Aditama, SPK, Mars, DTM and ACE, DTCA and FISR. He's from Yarsi University, Jakarta. Sorry. You wait for the CV. Okay, so we can see the academic qualification. He graduated from University of Indonesia for his medical doctor in Jakarta 1980. And then he also got a diploma for TB control and epidemiology, tropical medicine and hygiene. And then he got his master of hospital administration from University of Indonesia as well. And then he's also the pulmonologist in University of Indonesia and also consultant. And his current position, he is the director of postgraduate program University Yarsi University in Jakarta, professor in University of Indonesia, and then also governing board member of CMEO, adjunct professor, and also senior advisor, Australia-Indonesia Health Security Partnership. So we will give the time to Dr. Dicky Budiman for his presentation. Hello, Dr. Dicky.
Hello.
How are you? You are in Aussie?
I'm good. Yes, I am.
I'm Ligaya. Nice to meet you, Dr. Dicky.
Nice to meet you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh. Waalaikumsalam. Dr. Dicky and Dr. Chandra, you have like each 30 minutes for your presentation, and then it will follow with discussion 30 minutes after two presentation. Is that okay, yeah, Doctor?
Yeah.
Okay, the time is yours now, please.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ligaya and Prof. Chandra. I think he's already in the meeting room, and also my respect to Prof. Sehadi and also the member of the Faculty of Medicine in IPB University, and of course to the audience, the student of the Medical Faculty of IPB University, which is now I think the first year of their study. Allow me to share the screen. Let me see. Can you see the slide, Dr. Ligaya? Yes.
I see it now, Doc.
Thank you. So, okay. The topic that I will present is about the intersection of Agromaritime and One Health for global health security to address emerging challenges in 21st century. Of course, the aim is to building a safer world. This is ambitious and idealist target, but we have to have this target, especially for we are in the academic world and also in research field. We have to do our best to make the world is safer than now and even the previous one. And our contribution and through this workshop is about how we can understand the intersection of the agromaritime, which is I think quite new for Indonesia, and even not only in Indonesia, even in Asia as a whole, except for maybe Japan and Korea. Agromaritime, and we link with the One Health and also the global health security. I also showed 3 institutions in here. Of course, IPB University as the host for the workshop and also the facilitate the workshop. And ED or Ikatan Dokter Indonesia, which is I also the member of the organizing committee, and of course Griffith University. Now I'm the researcher in Center for Environment and also Population Health under School of Medicine also. If I show you this picture, of course, most of us, especially in my era, is very familiar with this wet market. And in Indonesia, this situation is still common. And of course, based on lesson learned from pandemic COVID-19, when we look at of the situation, we know there's a problem. There's a huge and also a dangers, and that the situation, a kind situation like this can contribute to the emerge of new infection, new outbreak, and Indonesia is one of the country that can contribute to this new emerging infectious disease. And why I show this picture is because we are a doctor, and also especially when we learn, and I think in Indonesia, the medical faculty who learn or who teach, who focus on One Health, Agromaritime, and of course the global security is none so far. So if IPB University can start to address this issue, that's very give a benefit to the Indonesia and also to the world as a whole. And this situation, if we cannot improve how to manage this situation in many areas of Indonesia, then we will have face the big challenge and big threat in not necessarily in the future, but in near time. So again, the understanding of the One Health, Agromaritime, and also global security is very important when the graduate from, let's say, the IBP University, the medical doctor working on the field and give the advice or make a decision in terms of this to manage this situation. I would like to share with you the some of definition that we will share very often in this presentation, and also in your next journey of your study. And I think I already shared the paper on this, so I hope each student can learn and also get the knowledge, at least a brief knowledge about this intersection of One Health, Agromaritime, and global security. Again, One Health and also Agromaritime and global health security are three related concepts. So they are interrelated and cannot be separated, because each of them has a very important role in contributing to the global health security, to the community health, or to the public health. So that's why we have to look at very deep about the not only definition but also their role, and also then we will know the impact of each of these the factors. For One Health, we know this One Health is recognized as the interconnectedness of the health of human, animals, and environment. So that's three aspects: health of human, animals, and environment, which is very important. And again, based on the lesson learned from COVID-19, those three is very strong interconnected. If we don't address each of them appropriately, so we will face a problem. Let's say we just focus only for the human health, then we disregard the health of the animals, then it is a matter of time the zoonosis disease will come or will arise because we doesn't care about these surveillance in animal and etc. And also is vice versa, or in same thing with the environment. If we doesn't care or disregard about the healthy environment, we, let's say, about the market like this, we disregard about the management of the clean market, or let's say healthy market. So then it's a matter of time the outbreak will arise from the market, and as what we saw from the Wuhan market. And the second definition is about the agromaritime. It is referred to the agriculture, fisheries, and marine sector that provide food and livelihood to, of course, not only to the world, especially for Indonesia. So this is very important because when we manage this process, it's in not appropriate. So again, the process of, let's say, slaughtering the animals will be also contributed the other problem of the zoonosis disease. So this is very important. And under this topic also, or agromaritimes, it is also related to the food security. If we cannot eat, let's say, the dairy product, or we cannot eat the, let's say, an egg, that's a problem for our public health, because many of the protein is come from the, let's say, the animals, or this agricultural also. So this is about the food security, which is also can give serious consequences to the global health. And that's why the last one is about the global health security. On the other hand, refers to the collective efforts to prevent, detect, and respond. So if we talk about global security, remember, we talk about three main aspects. First is about how we can prevent the outbreak, the disease, or the threat. Because global health security is not necessarily about the disease. It's also can related to biochemical, or the nuclear bomb, or maybe climate change and others, a flood and disaster and etc. So, and how we can prevent that. And the second one is about how we can detect early as possible. Let's say the ability to detect the early threat to Indonesian health security, it should be from the borders, from the airport, from the maybe our borders with other countries. That's very important. And the last one is about the response, because it will, it will also a big problem if we just has ability to detect, ability to prevent, but we don't have ability to respond. It's mean our healthcare infrastructure or our hospital doesn't has the human resource, doesn't has the infrastructure or necessary medicine or medical devices to respond to the outbreak or the public health crisis. So again, three of these factors is very important in terms of global security. Then why it is very important to talk and also to put those three as the our priority or our program in dealing with the public health is because those three promoting multidisciplinary collaboration between human, animal, and environmental health sector, which is, again, this is very crucial for ensuring global security. And of course, even this is quite new, but it doesn't mean in Indonesia we don't have I would say the baseline knowledge or baseline infrastructure. We have, but it is a matter. It will require the effort to collect and also to manage all those the resources. And the intersection of these three topics or these three aspects is very important by doing the certain activities or by doing the certain program. For example, it's about the disease surveillance and control. If we talk about disease surveillance and control, it doesn't mean only about or related to human health, because we talk about disease surveillance and control, it is also talking about the animal health. So if we don't have disease surveillance and control in animal appropriately, that's also become a problem. So again, if we dealing or if we want to again detect, prevent, and respond of this zoonotic disease, which is come up from animals, then we have to have this disease surveillance. And if we talk about disease surveillance, if we talk about the human resource, which is about skill, capacity, capability, and also about the infrastructure. And then also it will also related to the regulation. The second one is about the antimicrobial resistance, and Chandra is one of the experts in the world about this. The overuse and misuse of antimicrobial, it's unnecessary only related to human. Because during my practice in Puskesmas in Tasikmalaya, which is they had the chicken farming, they gave the antibiotic to their chickens without any recommendation from the veterinarians. So this is very dangerous also because it will impact also the human. This is something that seems still under still not get the enough attention from the government and even from the researcher. And again, if we talk about this AMR or antimicrobial resistance, this is one of the global health threat, because if this happens, many let's say normal procedure or common procedure in healthcare cannot be done because we don't have antimicrobial. So that's a problem. And the fourth one is about the climate change and environmental degradation. It is very important now, and even more importantly than before, if you become a medical doctor, you also has enough knowledge about environmental health. You have to also have enough knowledge about the climate change in relation to the health. That's why I study this on my PhD in global security. It is also a study about the interrelation of many factors to the global health security, of course, in locally to the local health security, and at the end to the human health security. And the last one is about food safety and security. This is linked to the agromaritime. Ensuring food safety and security is very critical in global security because food is everyone needs. And without food, without enough supply, even make sure that the supply chains for food is secure, that there will be a problem for the country. And that's become and can rise or give a multiplier effect because of about the food. It is we call it it's about perut. It is very important, and that's can become a political issue. This is the table or the figure that give you more clear that actually at the global level, many international organizations already started to address this issue and it is also related to the preventing the next pandemic. And based on this slide, the student, especially the new generation of medical doctor and also public health students should know that we are dealing with the very huge issue, which started from the local action, which is started from our effort, let's say, through this workshop. And the driver of zoonotic pandemic is already explained in previous slide. I show this to show you, this is in Australia in here. So this is Indonesia I hope Indonesia in next maybe 5 or 10 years. I hope no more than 10 years, because if we talk about One Health, this is one aspect that's very important to manage now or to fix from now. It is about how we separate or we make a good plan about where is the people will live, where is the location for the farming and also and slaughtering and etc. We have to do we have to have it like this, because it will reduce the probability or the occurrence of the outbreak or zoonotic disease. And for example, if I celebrate, I think next month, we will celebrate the Idul Adha. So in here, the slaughtering hewan kurban, motong hewan kurban, it should be has the certification, or at least you doing in proper way, but you cannot sell or distribute the meat without certification. So that's the very clear the real example how we started from the local regulation about this food security. This is also including in food security aspect. So, but we have the challenges and obstacle to implementation of these aims. But of course, the identification of all these challenges is also to for us to address. Of course, the first step to address these challenges is not only identifying them, but also we have to have a research in each of these challenges. Have a research to do what? To find the option solution, or also option for recommendation. And I should say, as the medical doctor, you have to know about the Ottawa Charter. When we do this research, we have to use this Ottawa Charter framework, which is, it will asking about how the regulation until how the individual of community can respond to this challenges, can also respond to the option, solution, and recommendation. So this is something that we have to start that from now on, because now again, lesson learned from COVID-19 pandemic, that every action, every policy recommendation should be based on research or science, should be based on evidence. That's if we talk about that one, we talk about the research activity, which is we conduct and find the data and information. I think this is my last slide. I would like to raise this issue because I put also in final slide, because I would like to remind all of us that we live. I'm in Australia, but I am Indonesian. I will also go back to Indonesia sometime. Indonesia is the hotspot for emergence and spread of infectious disease for many reasons. For many reasons, you can read in the right side of this slide. But the reason why I raise this important issue or topic or message is because, especially for the student, as a student in Indonesia, or as a medical doctor in Indonesia, you have to be aware about this, because every action, when you deal with the community, when you treat your patient, you have to put this information in your mind, or bear in your mind about this message. If you're dealing, or you, let's say, after graduate as a medical doctor, the government send you to let's say, Tasikmalaya, for example, like me. Tasikmalaya, in some part of Tasikmalaya, they have this chicken farmer. And if you feel, let's say, if your patient has the fever, and the fever is, let's say, like flu, but the occurrence has bring some a big question, because suddenly, or even severity, and also there's some maybe member of family die because of that one, of the disease. So you have to very careful and always thinking about this one. And when give recommendation, it's not only about the eating food well and etc., but also you have to remind them about remember about the personal hygiene, occupational health, and etc. And in community, when you become the head of puskesmas, for example, you have to also be in your mind about this, to give the advocacy to the, let's say, pacamat, or the even to bupati or wali kota. This is something that should should be in every medical student, and also the medical workers when they work on the field, because otherwise we will in very prone situation, because we don't have enough mitigation on the field. And one of the mitigation on the field is when we have skillful public health workers, which is not they really aware about this situation, and it's mean then they become a radar, a part of the surveillance system to detect the unusual event in public or the community. That's my last slide, and thank you. Again, please read the paper to let's say, to adding your knowledge about this issue. Thank you. I return to Dr. Ligaya.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dickey. So we learned more about the intersection of agromaritime and One Health, and also a lot of challenges and obstacles for One Health implementation from you. Well, hopefully later on some question will be arise for your speech. But after this, let hear from Dr. Chandra first before we do the discussion. Yeah, Dr. Dickey. So I will invite Dr. Chandra now. Professor Chandra.
Yep.
Okay. How are you, Prof?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. I'm in
Oh, that's great.
Palembang
Okay.
attending the biomedical meeting, Indonesian biomedical meeting.
Sure. Well, thank you for present in this presentation. Now the time for you, 30 minutes, yeah, Prof. And then after that, we will
Okay.
follow the discussion. Thank you.
So, the student colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, my task is talk about the the One Health in related to G20 as well as the ASEAN leader meeting. But was I'm sure already mentioned from the very beginning what is One Health. I just would like to stress again. Sorry if the slide is already there. That 60% of existing human infectious diseases are zoonotic. I mean, from animals, 75% of emerging infectious diseases of it is of human. Also, 5 human diseases appear every year of animal origin, and 80% of agent are zoonotic pathogen. Maybe this slide already mentioned earlier. And these are the what should I say, the outbreak from 1980 up to now, and you can see most of it are related to animal, monkeypox, bovine encephalopathy, avian influenza, Hanta is COVID-19. And if you are talking about, this is something, the same slide. This is the bovine, this is the Hendra because of related to horse. I think this is where Dr. Dicky located. I mean, this is from Australia, maybe not near Brisbane. I don't know, but anyway, these are some example. This is between bats, pigs, and human. SARS also. This is H5N1 of chicken. This Ebola related to a monkey and Marburg, etc. So this slide just to show to you that the kind of importance of zoonotic problem to our health, not only human, I mean personal health, but also community health, country health, and even health of the people globally, quote unquote, a pandemic. Why this has happened? Because relation between human and animal are more close from time to time. So this kind of this slide show you how close human and animal. If you think this is not close enough between human and animal, this is another example. This one even closer. See, between human and animal. But this is maybe not in Indonesia. I will show you how close the human and animal in Indonesia itself. And this is animal and human. See how they behave the same between human. I mean, this is human. This one is human. Okay, human and animal. Okay, so one aspect of disease problem in human is about animal, but the other aspect is of course about environment. So climate change and health is well discussed, well studied in various journals. So this is another aspect of important impact to human health. So that's why come the concept of One Health, that is healthy people, healthy animal, and healthy environment work together like this. So again, this is the same. One Health is human health, environmental, animal health, and this what do you call it? The one all together like this is the One Health approach, and it could cover quite wide of area. So for human health, of course, not only sick or not sick, but also people movement, social determinant of health, the diet, food security, and for animal is also topic about antimicrobial resistance, partly because of related to animal, partly related to human. Another issue of intensive livestock and the most some of diseases are related to various factors. And for environment, we already talked a little bit about climate change, water pollution, air pollution, deforestation, etc. You may know that WHO just mentioned that more than 90% people globally live in the area where are polluted. So again, the importance of human health, animal health, and environmental health as one health. For international organization, actually there are 4 international organizations who are related to this One Health. This is the WHO, who are taking care of human health. This is the, I think somebody bocor. Okay, this is FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. This is OIE. OIE now become World Organization of Animal Health, the WOAH. The OIE is a French terminology for World Organization of Animal Health, and this is the United Nations Environmental for taking care of environmental. So there are 4 international agencies along the island. Kalau boleh kali.
Sorry, Prof, you are muted. Yes.
Yeah, I was muted by the
Yeah,
committee
sorry, because
there are some, yes.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so again, there are 4 international organizations related to this One Health issue: the WHO for human health, the FAO for food and agriculture, the OIE, which is animal health, World Organization on Animal Health, and the United Nations Environmental, I don't remember what the E is, program. United Nations Environmental Program for taking care of environmental. So on March 2022, this the head of these 4 organizations signed an agreement. Why this is important? For two reasons. So firstly, because they are all signing this important agreement. That's so in global level there are already agreement of this one. Second thing I would like to mention, because they just signed it just new 2022. Before that one there was already signed between these 3, not this one. So One Health control program basically is we know from many years ago, but the new era of this One Health just starting last year. The first step after designing is to produce the One Health Joint Plan of Action. So now there is already a global One Health Joint Plan of Action, and hopefully after this there will be a regional One Health Joint Plan of Action, and then country One Health Joint Plan of Action. I'm sorry. There are 6 action tracks of the One Health Joint Plan of Action. Number 1, One Health related to strengthen health system. Number 2, One Health to reducing the risk of emerging zoonotic epidemic and pandemic. Number 3, to eliminate endemic zoonotic, negative tropical disease and vector-borne disease. Number 4, to strengthen the assessment of issue of food security. Number 5, talking about antimicrobial resistance. And number 6, talking the importance of environmental aspect in the One Health. So these are the 6 areas of One Health Joint Plan of Action, which should be done globally, which should be done in our region, and which should be done in Indonesia, as well as which should be done in every province or district, etc. This slide just again to reiterate what is the aspect of One Health. So for human health, there is a social science and human, of course, human medicine. There is also veterinary medicine for animal and zoology, and there is ecosystem and agriculture and engineering as well. So this slide just show you that One Health related to so many areas of knowledge, areas of science that should work together to perform the One Health approach ideally. So that is about animal. One Health, and environmental and One Health. So what is the real impact as my topic is talking about the G20. As you may know that last year, Indonesia is the presidency of G20. G20 is the 20 most advanced country. I may say that globally. So Indonesia was the president of G20 last year. And during G20 last year, an Indonesian team raised several issues on health. The first one is talking about financial intermediary fund for taking care of pandemic. There is also forming a permanent structure for essential health resources. Talking about data sharing, also for pathogen pandemic potential, and also harmonizing global health protocol, and then talking about working together for research. That is, but beside these three, 1, 2, 3, during the presidency of G20 last year, there are three side effects. One is about TB. Secondly, about One Health, the one that we discussed, and thirdly is about antimicrobial resistance. So these are several discussions. I mean that we discussed during G20, as I mentioned, TB, AMR, and then pandemic, etc., and how the G20 related to the SDG achievement. So this is about the One Health side event. So the One Health side event of Indonesian G20 presidency last year, we are successfully produced the G20 Lombok One Health policy brief. Why it's Lombok? Because the side event was done in Lombok. So there is an endorsement of G20 Lombok One Health policy brief. It consists of 7 recommendations. It should be strengthened in G20 country as well as globally. First one is about awareness and advocacy. Number 2 is about pandemic prevention, preference, and response. Number 3, the importance of governance, because as you know, multi-sector, One Health taking care of human, animal, food, environment, etc. So it should be multi-sector approach. 4th is the importance of financial. But 5th is to implement whatever the policy brief, and then sharing experience between G20 countries and capacity building. And after implementation, of course, what we need is a monitoring and evaluation. So G20 already finished, but what this slide just want to show you that whatever finished, it should be implemented, because if it is only policy brief, it will not give an impact without implementation, of course. So implementation could prepare or prevent the new pandemic, but implementation is not only concept in global level or national level, but if down even to city and district. So again, implementation is the real important. Declaration in global level is important, but what is most important is to implement it on the field. So this is just one example to implement in the city and district, because this problem is there. I just mentioned one zoonotic diseases of rabies that happening in Bali during or before G20. It happening again in NTT 1 month before the ASEAN leader meeting. So again, implementation is important. That is G20. Now I'm talking about ASEAN. So last year Indonesia was the presidency of the G20, and this year Indonesia is the chair of the ASEAN. And of course, there are also several issues on health, but my suggestion is the ASEAN, since Indonesia is the chair of ASEAN, how can we strengthen the regional health system? And on 10th of May, we already, as Indonesia chair, the ASEAN leader agree on declaration on One Health initiative. So we have declaration on G20 level, and we have declaration on ASEAN level. So these are some result. Number 1, talking about the One Health network. Number 2, prioritize the health threat. And number 3, pursue comprehensive analysis. And number 4, making an ASEAN One Health joint plan of action. I already mentioned already global, but now the ASEAN leader declaration saying that we have to also to develop ASEAN One Health joint plan of action. So we have G20 level and we have ASEAN level. If we talk about the pandemic that we have now, of course, we know we are still in the COVID pandemic. There was a discussion whether it's beginning in the seafood market of several animals. There's also discussion whether it is related to that. So the zoonotic nature of COVID is still under discussion, but looks like at least in the beginning it is a zoonotic one. And you may know that on 3rd of January, the COVID was declared of public health emergency of international concern, and on 11th of March 2020, it was declared by the DG as a pandemic. Okay, so we already have so many traumatic situation due to COVID-19. So people ask when will be the COVID pandemic end, and on May 5th this month, WHO say COVID-19 is no longer global health emergency. So he said about global health emergency. He didn't say the pandemic is over yet. No. So if I go, so this one, statement of 30th of January, talking about health emergency, this is already over, but not this one. At least not at this one. So that is the statement of on the 5th of May. Here I just quote clear information from WHO website. So declaration of the DG of WHO does not mean the pandemic is over, but the global emergency it has caused it is for now. So we still have to face the COVID-19. So even though it's no longer global health emergency, but the virus is still there. So virus. This is information about previous pandemic. The previous pandemic before COVID-19 was H1N1, but these three statements is still valid for COVID-19. So even though H1N1 that time on 2009 over, but the virus is still there. We can read for COVID, even though global health emergency for COVID is already over, but the virus COVID-19 is still with us. So there will be still virus, there will be still patients, there will be still deaths due to COVID-19, even though number of course will be controlled and limited. There will be still many questions that could not be answered because it's a new disease. And the most important part is, even though pandemic of COVID is under control, but continued vigilance is extremely important. Why? Because we know there will be another pandemic after this. We just do not know when. We just do not know where it will begin, and we just do not know what disease will cause the next pandemic. But for sure, there will be another pandemic. There are several diseases people said might be a next pandemic. One is the zoonosis again. The other one is the pandemic. I mean influenza. And during the opening ceremony of World Health Assembly several days ago, DG of WHO again talking about disease X. I read Dr. Deki already discussed about this one in several media. So these are several diseases that might be the source of the next pandemic, but we are not so sure, and we don't know when. But we have to prepare. So that's why continued vigilance is extremely important. So in conclusion, One Health again is kind of a combination between human health, animal health, and environmental health. And as I already mentioned, 75% of newly emerging infectious diseases originate in animals. So we have to protect biodiversity. And rainforest must be protected. So wildlife trade should be banned for the sake of our health. So how to implement it should be a collaborating, communicating, and coordinating. So One Health is very important. So one of the strong statement, there is no health without. Terima kasih. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Chandra. It's so intense to hear about all the presentation you gave, but that is great that we learn more about information from the maybe later on toward policy as well, yeah, because G20 recommendation and a lot of implementation that have been done in certain area in Indonesia as well, and also Asia. Now, I think as a medical student, it's really important to know more about what is One Health, how to implement it. Yeah. So yeah, that's good in the curriculum later on for IPB. we are just due for medical school, so it will be great if we have a good curriculum also for One Health. So thank you so much. We have a lot of time for discussion now. Then we have to wait for a question for the audience, Professor Chandra and Dr. Diki. Please wait a moment, okay? Okay, dear participant, where are all the questions for? Oh, okay. Now we can get. So the first one from Dr. Christie to Dr. Dickey. Okay, you can read it also. So many new pathogens come from animals, while traditional market in Indonesia still sell live animal directly, and that is difficult to change. How do we avoid the risk of health problem like during the last COVID?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Dr. Christie, and thank you, Dr. Ligaya, for moderating the section. So, of course, the one slide that the ideal condition that I show you in, I think before last of my presentation, that's the ideal, nearly ideal, not really ideal actually, nearly ideal situation. But transforming or transition to achieve that stage is also quite challenging, and that's the reason why research is very important. Because for example, the research, when we use the Ottawa Charter framework, the result will based on the current resources, the current situation. Because if we talk about those two, it means maybe people behavior still not easy to to change. That in Indonesia wet market, sometimes they just choose the chicken, right, and they slaughter in the location on site. The research usually can be done in the location to find, okay, how, just to make sure that every let's say every buyers can keep, let's say, keep a distance, wearing a mask, like Dr. Yeni here. I can see Dr. Yeni wearing mask, and even to the seller, we have to educate, literate the seller in the market that if they sick, they cannot, or they are not allowed to go to the market. Or if they found their animal is sick, they are not allowed to slaughter the animal. So this is to mitigate. But of course, to find which strategy appropriate, more appropriate to the local situation, it will need research. So the problem now, many government, even the public, just what to say, appreciate that the research is in the lab only, in laboratorium. The research, the one who wear the white coat and also doing the vaccines, the social research in medicine is so much important. Otherwise, how come Professor Chandra can has the ability to lead the global policy, make a recommendation to the global level? It is because the social research, how we can identify the problem, how we then make a solution option. That's the importance of this social research on health. So, and then again, I of course, what I mention and answer is that's a generic answer, but there is no fit one for all or fit for all, because again, even every village or every community in Indonesia quite different. Let's say I already also show, let's say in Manado can they can eat everything, but that's allowed by the community. That's no problem with that. But we have to educate them how to mitigate and how to that again, like Dr. Christie said, prevent, let's say, the next outbreak, the let's say the health impact, unnecessary health impact from that kind of consumption. I think that's my short answer, Dr. Ligaya.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dicky. Is there any more question?
If I may just give a short comment.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, Prof.
Yeah, of course, Dr. Dicky already mentioned the basic principle how to handle the situation. But my humble suggestion to you, Dr. Rigaya, and to student of the you call it IPB. I don't know whether it's IPB or IPB. Why not begin with the market near the campus? Of course, global research is important, global policy is important, but implementation. Why after this webinar, this seminar, starting from tomorrow, bring the medical student going to the nearest market of the near Dermaga area and do something there. After 6 months, we can see the result. So after 6 months, you invite Dr. DK and me again and show us after the webinar, we already walk the talk, not only talk, but really implement it. That is my simple suggestion to you.
Good suggestion, Dr. Chandra. Maybe later on, the student from veterinary medicine also can get along with that kind of implementation. Go to the market and then look at all the the food. I mean, like the meat and all the health of.
That's very brilliant idea, because each student, like I told you, Dr. Ligaya, they can also, let's say, educate the meat seller.
Yes.
Okay. But after observing, of course, supervised by the docent or the lecturer. Okay. They maybe the first week, or Prof. Chandra, the first week or the first 2 weeks, they observe, make like a checklist and discuss in the class, and then okay, what we can do, the real activity. That's a very good.
Well, the dean of the School of Medicine is here also, so she can start thinking about that.
If it's not that much, I will join. Usually going to your campus is traffic jam, isn't it? It's matches, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, we can do it together too. Yeah. Okay, for the next question will be for Professor Chandra, which is this one, Prof. So the question: are there barriers to communicating One Health to policymakers? How to overcome the barriers?
The barriers, the main issue, not the main issue, I should say, one of the important issue of many aspects, not only health, is work in silo. Every unit thinks or still working in their own area only. They do not want to coordinate with others. I'm not talking about that. In many aspects, we have that situation. So for One Health, as we already discussed, it will affect at least 4: human health, animal health, food and agriculture, food safety, and environmental. In case of Indonesia, there are 4 ministries, or maybe even more than 4 or 5 ministries. Other countries as well. So the first barrier is to the first way to taking care of the barrier is to break the silo. That's number one. Of course, number 2, the important international leadership declaration or head of country declaration. That is one step for that one. But after that, it should be really implemented in the field. So for the policy, because the question is to the policymaker, and we have to inform that this is issue of multi-sectoral and could only be taken care by multi-sectoral action. If it is one by one, it will never be successes. So one of the important of this webinar is not only for medical students, but to inform people as well that this is our problem, and please we have to tackle it together.
Okay, so the word collaborating, communicating, and coordinating don't be only a slogan, Professor. We have to do it, implement it. Well, that's very great. Is there any more questions? Well, there are two questions for Dr. Dicky. Can we predict the next pandemic using the power of big data from epidemiology and artificial intelligence, Doc?
Thank you, Dr. Eka and also Dr. Ligaya. Of course, so far the human cannot predict exactly when, from where the next pandemic will arise or come or appear. Again, like Professor Chanda already mentioned, the question is about the not about what, but it's when. It's about when. And to answer when, no one know. No one know. And even artificial intelligence, yes, they can make like prediction, but it's could be maybe 100,000 prediction. But for sure, because it's very complex, especially the wildlife is very that's a big laboratory. Wildlife is many factors involving in this wildlife as the laboratory. So my short question, still no, still we don't know yet. We just predict. Even I think the last week or the last 2 weeks, WHO already released about the X disease. It just puts the criteria about the hypothesis. The X disease is hypothesis or hypothetical disease, which can be come up in the next, as I said, the cause of the next pandemic. But again, unfortunately, we cannot so far yet. Even let's say pandemic is quite a big one. Let's say even to prevent or to predict the outbreak, let's say the dengue fever, that also, yeah, there's some improvement. I am working now with Griffith with the DFAT for the ASEAN for the early warning system for let's say the dengue fever. But still, the factors, let's say the climate factors, it's beyond our control. And also, there's another factor for the let's say the not only climate but the people behavior. We now in Griffith doing the research in Mekong River, that one, and it's very complex, very complex. Even we still not talking about the pandemic. It's about the dengue fever. We know dengue fever, but still there's a big problem. That's my. I don't know. I forgot the second question.
Yeah. Wait, we will show
Okay.
that again. Well, this is for both of you, Prof. and Doc. What effort have been done by the government to prevent disease from animal so that prevent another disaster?
I think Prof. Chanda can answer because Prof. Chanda is always become the advisor. I'm advisor for tourism. I'm advisor for Bang Sandi, so it's more about the economy, and So I think I can just respond based on my previous experience in government. Actually, One Health is not new issue. At least the last 20 years, at least we talk about it. But again, it's a matter of how we implement from theory to action. That's a big challenge for us. And if we talk about the animals, we always the one who deal with this is under the Kementerian Pertanian, I forgot the DG. At that time, we have a very good connection when I was in MOH. But again, if you look at the one of my slide, that one, the challenges, the obstacles, one of the very, very classic in developing country or middle income country is about the resources, money, political support, even the collaboration and etc. So that's a problem so far. But of course, the government there was some action for that one, but I don't know the progress. Maybe Professor Chandra can raise this.
Thank you, Dr. K. Wait for Prof. Chandra.
Yeah. So if I just add some comment on the first question, whether AI or whatever can predict, the answer is yes. But whether the prediction is correct or not, that's not the issue. If you just ask whether they can predict, of course. That's number one. Number two, I just would like to share to the audience that we have a COVID pandemic starting on 2020. Even though why it said as a COVID-19, because it was informed by WHO on the 31st of December 2019. So if it is just one day after that, it becomes COVID-19. Anyway. So basically, it's not COVID-19. And before that one, the previous pandemic was 10 years ago. I mean, 10 years before 2019. That was pandemic S1N1. So in 10 years apart, there was a pandemic of H1N1, and after 10 years, there is a pandemic of COVID-19. I'm not saying that 10 years after now, there will be another pandemic, of course, but just to give you an idea what is the situation. Before H1N1 influenza pandemic, there was no formal declaration from WHO, but there was several global outbreak like pandemic, of course, before that. That's my addition to the first question. So the second question is easy to answer, because the question is, what will government do? Most of us are not a part of government. So you should ask the government. I don't know whether you invite government, but you should ask the government.
Okay.
Yeah, what do they do?
Prof?
Yeah, but of course, like what Dr. Diki said, the government, they have several efforts. But I think what I involved was this declaration of One Health into a global meeting, and it is not easy because, of course, there are several topics that was raised, several options for raising. So the Indonesian government choose One Health for the G20, and Indonesian government again choose One Health for the ASEAN meeting. So that at least show the political commitment to say that One Health is important. So that is one of the important tools that we have, because there's already a support from the high level of the government. Implementation, if we are talking about regulation, there's also a regulation of coordinating minister. Hopefully, it's really working. So, to make long story short, there are already several actions, but we have to strengthen that action in the field. We have to implement it in the field.
Well, thank you, Roshan. I think there's one last question. Let's see. Okay, for both of you. So how we as academic people could provide solution to the problem above, which is Indonesia is quite difficult for the small merchant to follow the minimum standard.
Dr. Diki, difficult question should be by Dr. Diki.
Please.
Yeah, I think if of course this is very generic answer. Yeah, when we facing this kind of problem or want to address this problem, again, I'm not favorating, or let's say put Ottawa Charter as the best strategy to address some of the social issue on public health, let's say in policy making. But the other also strategy is need assessment, or even because we have to know what is the problem, because there's a problem, yes, but to find the problem, we have to look at every stakeholders, because when we doing the need assessment research, we will do the stakeholders also research or assessment. And because based on that, we then know the mapping of the problem. This is very generic, because to answer the specific question, that one, it should be based on this need assessment, then the stakeholders analysis, we call it stakeholder analysis, and combined with Ottawa Charter, because there is 5. I really, Prof. Sehadi, I really, as the public health researcher, I really want the medical student know about what is Ottawa Charter. This is very brilliant founding at the global level about how we address the research, then apply the result, become 3 use. Professor Kodiachu is one of the founding of this Ottawa Charter. So Professor Kodiachu is my director here. She say the research should be followed by fit with the criteria 3 use: useful, usable, and to be used. Because let's say, I think, and even my second daughter already graduated from one of the law school in Udayana. They make the scriptsy, right? Scriptsy. They say this is for the undergraduate. So the research should be okay in small levels, local level. What is your contribution of this, your research to the local community? It's not unnecessary to be the big one. And of course, again, responding to this question, the need assessment research will also help you to give more understanding whether this is the root cause, the root problem, or this is only just a superficial problem. So because then, based on that 5 element in Ottawa Charter, we can address the regulation, the community, the individual, the environment, even the environment there in Ottawa Charter and others. So that's I think my recommendation for to address here. This is more about the method of research to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tiki. Dr. Chandra, is there any more you want to add?
Yeah, just shortly. Basically, there are 2 aspects of that question. Number 1, talking about problem of Indonesia, small merchant, etc. I just would like to share to all of you. Every country have their own problem. Maybe we have problem with small merchant, but other countries have their own problem. So we have to face whatever the problem it is, and it's not only. It's not fair to say that Indonesia facing this one, but other countries do not. That's not true. Every country has their own problem. That's my first comment. My second comment, if we are talking about what is the second question, talking about the role of academician, etc. I will just go for I don't know what is the English terminology of Tri Dharma Perguruan Tinggi. So 3 whatever. So let's do that one. We have to teach our student in area of One Health and how to solve it. We have to do a research, as Dr. Diki several times mentioned, about One Health and issue and implement it. And we have to, number 3, problem masyarakat. I do not know what is in English, but we have to do something really in the community. I already, in the very beginning of this discussion, I already mentioned, why not just begin tomorrow? I mean, the day after tomorrow, Monday, to bring the student going to the market near that's already real action. Thank you. You will give door prize to participant, I show, but not door prize to the speaker, I think. I read it there.
That's a great suggestion. Sorry, I said the last question, but apparently there are 2 more questions. This is so interesting. Please, the time, yeah. So this is all for both speaker. Those are the question. Oh, this is from Pak Agus. Please suggest us what are the indicators that can show that the approach of One Health approach has been carried out among the health providers, at least in three main One Health sector. That's from Pak Agus. And then the last one, hopefully this really the last one, from Samuel Finley. This is, you can read it, about the national policy to respond to this issue. Is it applicable or acceptable to multi-stakeholder, cross sectors? Are the policies in place? Well, what about the interoperability of national resources, asset in time of emergency or crisis? Well, please, who wants to answer this first? Two questions.
Of course, Dr. Diki.
Diki or Prof. Chandra?
Yeah.
Those questions for both of you.
Thank you, Pa Agus and Bang Samuel. This is my
you know
friend.
all of them.
Both of them very actively involved in this issue, especially for Pa Samuel, of course, including the health security. One Health, of course, in Indonesia already done. I mean, the joint external evaluation for international health regulation, and actually under international health regulation, or quite broadly cover the all issue, including regarding to this One Health actually. But the problem is under this joint external evaluation, it's the mechanism to do this one, especially before the pandemic 2019, is more voluntary. It's more voluntary, which is the government, the sectors, just report by themselves. There is no verification. There was no verification. There was no cross check or validation. This is something that make many countries, which is in the, let's say, the mid rank of the Global Health Security Index, is based on the also GEE. It's not let's say it show their performance for dealing with pandemic as it is. I mean, as the reflecting their rank. Let's say USA, the first rank in Global Health Security Index, based on GE, our joint external evaluation of international health regulation core capacity. But in reality, the number, the situation, even some of the independent evaluator put USA in very low rank in responding to the pandemic. So that's one of the weakness of this GE, and I think WHO and also and their partner will improve or fix with this weak. And the problem with the One Health, again, even under coordinating Ministry of PMK, that one, they have this center, or this, let's say, the coordinating under their coordinating ministry. But again, the lack of resources, the lack of maybe strong institution compared to, remember, maybe a few years ago we have this zoonotic, komisi zoonotics. I forgot the name. We have actually the institutionalized of these, let's say, almost like a One Health to apply, to implement the One Health. But And this is also respond to the second question from Bang Finlay bahwa that the institutionalization of this, let's say, approach of One Health is very important. It not necessarily become the new body or the new institution, but it's linked and has one institution in the government has a very strong power or authority to review, to monitor, and also it's mean they have the enough allocated budget to do this one. That's still a problem for this one. I think in general that I can respond to this. Maybe we can add more.
Thank you, Dr. Diki. Prof. Chandra?
Yeah, from Agus, like talking about indicator. Actually, now just give one example. The ASEAN Leader Declaration already signed on the 10th of May. Now we are in the process to implement that one. So to implement that one, the question raised how to monitor and what are the indicators. So there is already discussion on which indicator should be used for the implementation of One Health ASEAN Leader Declaration. So there are several, of course, it's not an easy task to decide, but there are several references that we can make. First one is we go to the Global One Health Joint Plan of Action. There's several issues there. Secondly, my suggestion to my colleague in the Ministry of Health, you can go to the, when I was still in WHO, we discussed about 3 million, 1 million people more living in more healthy, etc. So those documents, they have a very detailed indicators for all of the various aspects of health. So we can choose also some indicator from that to be put in the One Health indicator. That's the second option. The third option is the AMR, because AMR basically is quite advanced in the sense of document. So there's also already WHO declaration on AMR. There are also several indicators there. So we can choose from those sources to get the indicators. That's for Prof. Agus. From Pak Samuel, yeah, national policy, interoperability, etc. is important. Of course, we have to discuss. But I just would to raise one issue. One of the main, that is too sensitive to say, but many health people are now talking about this draft of law, health law, the so-called omnibus law. If you read the first draft of the omnibus law, there was no One Health whatsoever mentioned. But during the discussion, several people, also me, telling them, so you have to add One Health, at least one word. Otherwise, how can we make a health law without talking about One Health? Of course, now the issue is different. The issue is about other issues. So people are saying whether this new health law should be continued, not continued. I will not go to that one into detail, but we have to go into more strategic way to put One Health as an important, and as my last slide said, we have to know that no health without one.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chandra, Prof. Chandra, and Dr. Diki. So we need to have for the regulation, yeah, Prof. Chandra, about One Health. Maybe this is already the time to do it for all of us. Yeah. Okay. I think this is the end of this presentation. It's so fruitful, a lot of information for us, and I'm sure for all participants, it's still 116 participants that follow this seminar. You know, like they will get all the benefit from this presentation. Thank you so much, Prof. Chandra and Dr. Diki. But before we will end, again, we need to take photo together for the documentation of this presentation, if you don't mind. Okay. Siapa Pimpin? Wait for a moment. The committee will start working on it. Dr. Yani, ready?
In 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you, Bu Hidayah.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Yani. Before I hand it back the program to Dr. Yani, I got another task now because for all the people that make question, actually we want to give also appreciation. Yeah, because there's a voucher, yeah, Dr. Yani. So wait a moment, how the way we will choose the lucky person for this. Okay. Well, we will wait. Well,
Yeah.
all questions are good, the best, but who the lucky one that will get this?
You can say stop, Bu Ligaya. Stop. Maybe you can say stop or choose the
Okay,
winner.
wait, I didn't want to say. Terus. Yeah, stop.
Nggak bisa, stop dulu.
Okay.
Kasih.
Oh. So, Dr. Eka.
Congratulations.
So, this is a lucky doctor that gave the question and then give the the voucher. Yeah, thank you. I think Dr. Yani, my duty is done. Thank you for the opportunity to the Dean of Faculty of School of Medicine, IPB. I will give it back the program to Dr. Yani as an MC. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the keynote speakers for the insightful discussion and also the moderator Bu Ligaya for leading our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, before we end this seminar, we will give your prizes again to our participant. We are now spinning the wheel of name, the wheel of fortune. We will get another interesting prizes. GoPay voucher worth 250,000 rupiah. Let's start. Okay, we start now. Okay, for the first winner, we'll get GoPay voucher. Maybe me, maybe myself. Itu automatically apa? Wait, congratulations, Dr. Sylvia Gunawan Mars. Okay, the second winner.
Iya.
Belum. Ya, cepat aja.
Dr. Manuel.
Next, we will choose 10 winners. 10 bro. Maybe 20 or 30. Oh, congratulations, Dr. Ayu Rahmi. For all winner, can contact committee from in the chat box. I will give the number. Congratulations, Dr. Aprilia. 6 again. 6 more. Congratulations, Dr. Dwen Hewan Erni from IPB University. From IPB. Okay, congratulations, Dr. Mustafa. Oh, from WHO. Congratulations, Dr. Insinyur Cecilia Metti. 3 more. 3. Okay, congratulations, Dr. Reni. 2. Okay, congratulations, Dr. Gita Widya Pradini. And the last is Rosri Hadi. Oh no. Okay, congratulations, Dr. Nurul Hikmah. Okay, congratulations to all the winners. You can contact the committee through this chat box or CP in the flyer. Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our seminar. I believe you've got beautiful insights from our speakers today. Thanks again to all speakers, moderator, committee, participant, and also sponsors. Have a great day and see you next time.